Hey drivers, we have a problem. Dweezil's engine is down, but a couple of weeks ago we picked up this single port we call Wheezy. Let's take a look and see if there is any chance we're able to stay on the road. We already have one big concern. Let me pull this clutch plate off. I'll show you what I mean. It's a pressure plate. This is an oily clutch. I have an excellent assistant today. We're watching this needle here. We want it to move no more than 6 of those little notches, like from here to here. Oops. So that is 65 thousandths of an inch of end play, and we really only want, 4 or so? That's trouble. You're only helping so much, I'm just saying. You're only helping a little. That means the front main seal has no hope. It needs a thrust cut. We're hurting rod bearings and connecting rods and all kinds of stuff every time we push on the clutch with this. That's a really bad situation. But let's just take a look at the whole picture. Oh, I think this is gonna be the story all day. Lots of bad signs. This is not a set of threads that we want to destroy. Not sure why that stud was loose there. We'll clean it out a little bit, put the stud back in, and move on. Well, this seemed like a really cool design, and I guess it still is, but the inside diameter of this mount is 1 5/8, and the outside diameter of this yoke is more than that. All right, let's see what we can do here. That'll work. This little adapter that sits underneath the oil cooler was for a heater arrangement. This car came from New York, where it was probably a welcome thing to have a little bit more heat in the car. So the 2 lines from here actually ran through the firewall. They had to drill holes to do that, where there would have been a heat exchanger or radiator inside the car. The way I found it was where the 2 ends of those hoses were just tied together, so it had been bypassed. We want to remove that. That's another point of failure. Try to make quick work of it. These are rattle can caps here. Yeah, something's been living inside there. We need to clean all that stuff out. Chances are it's full inside the cylinder tins also. So we'll be pulling some things off. That'll give us a chance to clean them up a little bit, seeing if we can bring this thing back to life. This is something that I just don't want any part of. I know a lot of people like these, but I'm not a huge fan. It's, again, another point of failure, and we really shouldn't need them. You might notice that this one was going backwards. This was just plugged in there. And you notice the flow thing, right? You got to get them going the right direction if they're going to do you much good. Just go ahead and pull all these fuel lines off. I made a really big boo-boo getting in a little bit of a hurry, pulling this thing out from underneath the car. Busted this arm off. That holds the spring. So I may have another top, but I hated that I did that. I should have slowed down a little bit. This looks like a vacuum hose. Pretty sure that's not a good choice for a fuel line. These are all little signs, right? They're all pretty typical signs, but when you evaluate... Ooh, listen to that. Wow. How an engine has been treated, like the decisions that the last person who worked on it made, that kind of gives you an idea of its condition. I'm expecting this to be really bad. Another not so great sign here. This is very typical, but I'm able to push this throttle shaft up and down, so there's a little bit of play. That's an air leak. That'll make this hard to tune. We might have to find a different carb. The fix for that is a throttle shaft bushing, but I haven't figured out how to do that yet. Volks Bits is who everybody sends their carbs to at this point. Here's something I like to see. This is the ground screw for the generator. I ran a separate wire on Dweezil for that. I like to see the screw sitting in there. Usually it's just an open hole. We have an OEM blower housing. I like that too, and I like that they blocked off these outlets if they weren't going to use the heater boxes. This would be a huge air leak, so that was a good thing they did. Gonna push this clamp off the back. This is of course looping underneath the generator stand down there. Just push that back off the way. Original Bosch generator, I'll take that. This would not do much for cooling. What a mess. Yeah, we got to clean all of that out. I'm not going to bother trying to run this thing with all that gunk in there. No way those cylinders would run cool. These cylinder tins will have to come off to really be able to get down in there and do all the cleaning that we need to. So that means that the intake manifold has to come off too. I promise we're trying to limit how much we tear into this thing. Hey buddy, you helping? So I don't like it when the studs come out, but I don't see a bunch of aluminum on these threads, so we're probably okay. We'll use the shop vac to pull those out. If you've been around the channel a while, you've seen this. This is just an old chisel here that's been cut off and a 3/8 inch extension welded to it. And a little screwdriver tip. Has a pretty good record, although it's not infallible. Case in point, it just knocked the side of this one off. That's awesome. Awesome. Wow. Well, we didn't save it, but we tried. Not too bad. There is some aluminum in these threads. Okay, this one is just fine. No aluminum in there. We got one. 1 out of 3. I put some time into spraying down the engine with kerosene, going over it with this parts cleaner brush. This does pretty good. I'm just trying to remove the top layer of gunk before we open up any more parts of the engine. So I'm going to take the engine outside, spray it down, and then we'll pop off these valve covers to see what fun and exciting things lurk beneath there. I'll show you one interesting thing we've uncovered here. Look at that. There it is. We're looking for bizarre things someone has done to keep this engine running. A little bit of JB Weld on the top of the case. That's interesting. Let's rinse it off and see what is inside the valve covers. Good job, buddy. You're good at that. Now we have things clean enough that we can see a little bit better what we're dealing with. No real bad warning signs other than a little bit of JB Weld on the case. So far, the worst thing we've seen is excessive in play, and that's with a capital excessive. Excuse me. Some water got in, I guess. Our seals aren't that great. I'm looking for any studs that protrude more than the others as kind of a loose sign of maybe a pulled stud. Whoa. That's visibly huge valve lash. That's interesting. Let's open the other and then we'll run through the valves and see where we are. Yeah, that's a warning sign, and it does appear to be a little bit further stuck out than these others. Yeah, we can just see it backing out. Okay, so we have a pulled head stud. That's really bad. So case savers are the thing. We'll have to think about that one. For stuff like this that has an important torque spec, I like to check to see what it's torqued to initially before I untorque it. 225 would be about 25 pounds on this torque wrench. I'm up to 35. Okay, I ran out of torque wrench and it never budged. So this flywheel is way, way, way over torqued. I really don't think there's any need for that. So I'll just go ahead and untorque it. That came off kind of easy. A quick look at this flywheel shows that it does not have many miles on it at all. Everything looks nice and fresh, so this is probably a replacement flywheel. I don't see a ton of oil behind here, so that flywheel seal may have survived the excessive in-play. Oh, no it didn't. It's all torn up. We're really looking for 3 shims here. There we go. A quick measurement of the shims puts us at about 31 thousandths and change. So that's pretty typical, somewhere in that ballpark. This one is not too flat. That'd make setting in play really difficult to have something crimped like that. And then there is our bearing. Oh boy, that's really bad. The bearing is spun. All right, that's starting to look like game over to me. I'm gonna pull the rest of this seal out and then we'll look at that bearing a little more closely. Here's the really bad thing that we're seeing. So it's loose in its bore. That means that not only do we have a thrust cut issue, but the bearing bore itself is damaged. That may have really messed up the dowel pin too. That is a lot of movement. We have up and down movement. Yeah, this is a mess. This is why we can't fix a thrust bearing issue with shims. We would be stacking the shims between this face here and the flywheel. The flywheel needs to rotate, this bearing does not. So that's asking for big trouble. This really changes things. We're not just gonna get this engine running long block style. It needs more attention than that. Click this video to tear into the long block and find more surprises. At this point, we've got nothing to lose and a lot of problems to solve. So help me out in the next video and I'll see you there. Oh, we're so upset about the engine.